Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me tonight on Off Limits. We're talking tonight about gay marriage because that is the topic of the day. Is same-sex marriage inevitable? And also talking about several other topics, talking about Bruce Jenner coming out finally as being transgender, and talking about Ted Cruz's gay supporters there in New York. Also, Texas passing an a discriminatory anti-gay bill, straight pride events, and more. So be sure to check me out if you want to know more about me at offlimitshow.com. You can listen to the show there live, or you can listen to the show live on Spreaker.com. You can listen to the shows and the archives on Spreaker as well as on iTunes if you want to subscribe there to Off Limits Show or to Gay Mass or to Brain Purge. And I think that's it. So thanks for listening. So, today we had the Supreme Court beginning to hear arguments on the final decision, essentially, on whether gay marriage will be a civil right across the country or whether it won't be. We've been obviously going back and forth with this since a couple of years ago when the Supreme Court ruled that DOMA was unconstitutional and struck down the part that allowed California and other states to decide on their own whether they could have gay marriage. So we now have, I think it's 33 states or something like that, maybe 37. I don't know. It's like 37, I think, or something, states now that actually allow gay marriage where it's legal. And the problem, of course, is that it is not recognized across all boundaries in all states. So it's one of the problems anyway. And we have the issue, of course, of people who are trying to do something here. People who are trying to have their marriages recognized in each state, the state that they live in. So, for example, of course, if they're married in Connecticut, like my husband and I, and they live in Texas, like we do, where it's not recognized, the state does not afford all of the same benefits to those couples that they would if they lived in the state they were married in, or a state that recognizes gay marriage. And of course, it's ludicrous and absurd that this is something that gay couples, such as myself, have to endure because of all of the hassles that are as a result of that. And obviously, the entire gay rights debate is based on bigotry, and the fact that we have a debate at all, of course, is based on the fact that people don't want gay people to get married because they're bigoted or prejudiced or homophobic, whatever you want to call it. They just don't like the fact that gay guys want to get married, or gay women, or whatever, or want to have children and want to have the same things that heterosexuals have in terms of the law and being legally recognized. And as I've mentioned, of course, many times before on the show, all of the different rights that are afforded to a person because they can be married under the law. Now, obviously, a lot of those rights were afforded to us as gay couples by the federal government because they're handled by the federal government. Once the DOMA was overturned a couple of years ago by the Supreme Court, but there are a lot of other rights that are handled by states individually, even if they are managed to some degree by the government. They are managed primarily by the states, and therefore those states where you are not able to get married in, even if you are married in a state that it's legal in, you can't get those rights. And so all we're wanting, of course, is the same thing. And the arguments today in the Supreme Court, essentially the Supreme Court is essentially divided, over, of course, our same-sex marriage issue. One of the most crucial votes is, of course, Justice Kennedy's vote, and he actually gave us a lot of reasons for optimism based on the tone and substance of his questions that he asked. I read a lot about it earlier today and about why that is. I won't go into the technicalities, but legally, he asked some questions and didn't ask others, and it led you to believe that he's definitely on the side of gay rights being the law of the land. It took 2.5 hours of arguments, essentially over whether the Constitution guarantees same-sex couples the right to marry. And Kennedy said he kind of was on both sides of the fence, but generally he was pretty much on our side, it seems. He's kind of the swing vote, essentially, between the ultra-conservative and the more liberal side of the Supreme Court. And he's somewhat of a moderate, I guess you'd say. And he's also the one that really put it over the top before with the last vote that they had. And the other people on the court basically were very, they reverted to type. The conservatives were very anti-gay, and they don't want to redefine, as they quote-unquote redefine gay marriage, or redefine marriage, I should say, for the nation. And the more progressive and liberal judges were, of course, saying that it is a civil right, and gays are a class, and they're entitled to the same thing, and blah, blah, blah. So, of course, there are a bazillion different reasons that they gave as to why they do or do not want to support gay marriage in the country. And Kennedy said I don't even know how to count the decimals when we talk about millennia. The definition has, because they kept saying that, same-sex marriage has been, traditional marriage has been around for millennia, and we don't want to redefine it. But he says the definition has been with us for millennia, and it's very difficult for the court to say, oh, well, we know better. He added that social science on this, the value and perils of same-sex marriage, is too new. Later, though, he expressed anxiety about excluding gay couples from the institution of marriage by saying, same-sex couples say, of course, we understand the nobility and the sacredness of the marriage. We know we can't procreate, but we want the other attributes of it in order to show that we too have a dignity that can be fulfilled, just as Kennedy said. So those are the things. He said one thing on one side, one thing on the other, he kept going back and forth. And so it's hard to really place him. The other things they discussed over the same-sex marriage bans in Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, and Tennessee were also divided at the start of the first about whether states must allow same-sex marriage. Mary Bonuto, she's representing about a dozen gay and lesbian couples in this argument. She essentially urged the justices to remove the stain, quote, the stain of unworthiness, end quote, that marriage bans produce. And that was kind of the crux of her argument, of course. And then other ones were saying there hasn't really been enough time for the federal system to engage in this debate as to whether gay marriage works or it doesn't work, which is fucking bullshit, of course. Scalia, whom is a horrible, I cannot stand him, he said, do you know of any society prior to the Netherlands in 2001 that permitted same-sex marriage? He asked of Benuto, and she said no, at least as a legal matter. Justice Roberts suggested that she was asking the court to do something radical. And he said, you're seeking to join the institution. You're seeking to change what the institution is. And he said, one of the things that's truly extraordinary about this whole issue is how quickly has been the acceptance of your position across broad elements of society. So anyway, it goes on and on and on. And so ultimately, though, there isn't a clear 100% signal as to whether they're going to vote one way or the other. As I said, primarily it seems they're going to vote across revert to type essentially and vote. Conservatives are going to vote against it, and the liberals are going to vote for it, and then Roberts will be the swing vote. So it's not inevitable, and a lot of people have been saying that it has been, and I think it is inevitable ultimately. I mean, ultimately someday it will come to fruition that same-sex marriage will have the exact same rights across all states, regardless of whether there's a ban or not in place. And but as at this point, in terms of the Supreme Court deciding by the end of June, they have to make a decision whether it's inevitable that they're going to it's going to be the law of the land. Now, I don't know. It's not to say. We don't know for sure. And nothing is inevitable, of course, but I do think that it's really just a matter of whether these people do the right thing or not. And of course, I'm so tired of having to discuss gay marriage. Gay marriage is important to gay people who want to get married, obviously. And even those who don't want to get married, it's important to have the right to be able to get married and to be able to have the right to have the same, to have, equality under the law, which of course is one of the tenets of our Constitution. So it is important, whether you want to get married or not, to have the right. Just like it's important to have the right to be able to walk outside your front door, whether you're, crippled or